Yeah, ahoy, welcome back, world. Beers with Max once again. No beer. I'm on hopefully my last day of broken foot, and then the beer will be back. I can almost guarantee it. Uh Ben Gaddis. The twang. Gaddis. We just did
Gaddis.
this.
We
Just
just
so
did this, you
everyone,
know. I
just so
feel like
people know, it's hard to do like an impromptu intro and get names right.
well,
Uh
you didn't nail it, but you did the second time.
yeah, so look, story of my life.
There you go.
Look, professor, if I can retake the test, I'm pretty sure I'll nail it.
Yeah.
Um,
My second guy at golf is the best. You know, if
right?
I could,
Player
yeah,
two.
amazing.
And there's nothing, what is it? Nothing better than a first impression.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't think so. People
Yeah,
don't
was
like
that?
me at first. I've been told. But I've been told by the people that now like me because second impressions are a thing. Ben Gaddis.
Gaddis.
I
That's
know
right. We
I
got
was
it.
kidding.
There you go.
See, that's why. It's because of the little bit of humor that goes too far. We're talking about agencies and even more than agencies, professional service companies that add value, help their clients grow. You've been collecting some of them, Ben, since the last time we spoke.
I have. Yeah. So I had a business called T3 that was in the digital agency space. We built a lot of marketing programs, but also a lot of the technology that powered customer experiences and did that. Sold it to a private equity firm and went on a crazy journey. We can talk about that another time. But my partner, Stuart Coleman, and I just felt like there was a gap in the, yeah, there, yeah, exactly. We started a private equity firm called Superstep Capital, and we have been acquiring technology services firms, the firms that you talk to all the time, that are great at implementing technology, but also sometimes don't understand the value that they bring to clients and how they can be a more strategic resource over a long time frame. And so part of what we do is help them kind of make that transition from tech partner to business partner using technology to deliver value.
Okay, so what is that the fourth dimension of value that you speak of, the hidden, real, strategic value?
Well, one of the things that we find in this space is that we operate in I'll give you an example. We have a business in the Snowflake ecosystem. So if you want to do a cloud data warehouse implementation, Snowflake's a great platform for that. There are lots of companies that pop up and become leading service providers, frankly, because they have founders who are just really good at that technology. And so they know this better than anybody and they can implement it better than anyone else can. And so people come to them and they attract talent. But one of the things that technologists aren't always as great at is understanding the value that they bring. And so implementing a cloud data warehouse, hey, that's great. Get all your data in one place, you can do some cool stuff with it. But what you can do with it and what it unlocks for a business, that's the true value. And so a lot of the work that we're doing is helping companies figure out, once you get your data into a data warehouse, how can you start to do inventory forecasting? How can you use AI to understand when your manufacturing line might break down? And when you get to that type of conversation, clients all of a sudden don't look at you as an implementer of a technology, they look at you as a critical business partner. And when you make that switch and that flip, all of a sudden you go from one implementation to like a 3, 5 year client relationship where you're part of their team and you're integral to their success. And that's kind of what we try to do in our portfolio.
Is it easy?
Yeah, it's easy, man. Everybody can do it.
Just
It's
flip a
just we
switch.
just do
I
it
mean,
overnight. Yeah,
I want to be in your
you got the
portfolio.
switch back here. No,
I want to
it's
meet
it's
these
not
open-minded
easy. It is
people.
not easy at all. It is really challenging. I mean, it's why probably you and I are in business. These things are, well, I'll tell you what it isn't. It's not rocket science, though.
Yeah.
These are not things that have, these are all solved problems There's lots of people who've come before us who've done a great job of this. And frankly, it's sometimes just having the right conversation, having a hard conversation, specializing and being an expert. And then, like you do, a lot of the service design to set yourself up to be successful. Because what these companies aren't doing, like I would be remiss to say that they don't do this well. They actually do. They just don't necessarily do this well at scale. It's really hard. You can be great one time if you put all your best people on it and you really focus on it. But when you start to grow and you go from 5 million to 15 million to 50 million, doing that over and over and over, you have to put the systems in place, you have to put the processes in place, you have to put all the people in place. And so just getting that in a way that it is scalable is probably the harder part than actually doing it. And so yeah, that's a big part of the process.
I was just talking to somebody about this who uh, he was saying that there's people that have it, and what I think we were talking about is identity. Like a lot of people, their identity is the value that they deliver to clients, and it's implementing this technology. Or if you're in marketing, it's making the good content. You know, um, but that value will always become less valuable.
Mhm.
And I think with AI and where technology are going, the do all that doing stuff becomes less value, and the relationships, that higher level thinking becomes more valuable. But the pessimistic view of it is people aren't going to change, and I think I'm recognizing that, in the last 10 years of trying to get people out of their own shoes, whether they're marketers or implementing technology, and seeing like, okay, now talk about the business cases. Now let's help our clients use the data to make better business decisions that have nothing to do with the original service that we provided. There's people that are going to go, yeah, that's what I was thinking. And there's people that are going to go, no, I'm going to go get another job.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the where I tend to start is that those people who maybe don't seem to run at it and embrace it as much as possible, I think they just haven't seen it because it is hard to do. And if you've
Okay.
never
Lack of
seen it,
exposure. Sure.
yeah, well, for example, you say, I'm doing an implementation of a technology, an accounting software. Um, the CFO, if you're in the middle of that project, and you're a project manager, thinking that you have the right to go to the CFO of that organization and have a conversation about their 3-year roadmap when you're 5 days behind on your project plan, it's mind blowing. And if you've never seen that happen, you probably have never seen that happen because that's a terrible time to do that, right?
Yeah.
But if you live in that world, it just doesn't seem possible. But when you see that you have to carve out specific time to have those conversations, when you think about like how could you bring educational content or value, like create some spaces for that to happen, and you go and you see that happen once or twice, then you go, oh, okay, well that worked, and this is a journey. We're going to do this over the course of multiple years to make this happen. I think that's kind of the key. And then some people, you know what, they'll just say, look, I don't want to build relationships. I want to build great technology. And they're role players. And you can put them in those roles and they have a place. I think they have a place in a business. You just have to kind of architect the service around them.
I do agree that it's funny because I was just talking about this, but I do agree that that is dangerous. We talk about culture a lot, and as an organization, you're either there to implement technology or you're there to maximize value for the client. And sure, you can have technical role players, and they do a great job, and we know that okay, you're not a relationship developer, you're a role player. But like you were saying, people mimic what they see. And I think there's a tipping point of there's more people in our organization that see the value in building relationships, regardless of what the SOP says. And there's people that want to put their head down and do their job. And while we can argue there's plenty of room for role players, I think there's a bigger picture. At least this is where this other CEO that I was talking to, which is like there needs to be a bigger change in our organization, and it's coming because he's seeing the lasting effects or lack of effects because of folks that don't get on board with like, what can I do to build relationships outside this technology that I'm implementing? So anyway, I'm just on that because I was having the conversation. But the first thing you said, I think, is spot on. Not enough people have been exposed to conversations with CFOs, to executive level board meetings and what they talk about. Because on the marketing side, they do not talk about marketing metrics. No one cares. At the executive level, like the reality is nobody cares about what you do. That's why you're in that position.
Yeah. Well, and I've been in some of those meetings, and yeah, they're not, a CEO doesn't care about click-throughs. They don't care about email
Yeah.
open rates. They care about sales. They care about revenue. They
Yeah,
care
or
about
where the data
where's the
is. Like, I
business.
don't care where the data is.
Exactly.
Is it safe?
Yeah.
Can I
Is it
make
safe?
decisions with it? Okay, perfect.
And so one of the things that I think that employees in that role have a real challenge with is understanding, like, what does the word value mean, and defining that for everyone inside your services organization. So, if you think that our value is to deliver an implementation, then we've set you up for success, to not succeed. We've set you up for failure.
Yeah, not
If
success.
you
Yeah.
not success, right? So if you are, but if you realize that that value means a client's business outcome, and we can kind of get you there, whether you're at the junior level or the most senior level. It goes back to that point you were making earlier. I do think people have to see that and they have to model it. And the smaller the organization, the more people have to have that mindset. Like, let's say, if you got 50 people, you need a majority of those people to be thinking that way. If you're Accenture and you got 400,000 people, you might be able to get away with, you know, only 20,000 people thinking that way. And
Yeah,
so
there's
as
like
the organization
there's
gets,
micro cultures.
yeah,
Everybody in the New
exactly.
England office is behaving this way. Yeah, maybe okay. That's an argument. I'll buy that. I wasn't going to talk about that today. It's on the top of my mind because for the first time I'm like, oh, that's why it's so hard. Because you're right. Some people refuse to do that because there's not a lot of arguments against. Hey, retention and expanding accounts. It's all about the relationship. And if you don't have access to people that cut checks, budget holding decision makers, if you don't have access to those people, you're flying blind.
Yep.
And the only
Totally
thing you're
agree.
going to feel is that split second before you hit the screen door, that you don't see it coming.
No, you don't see it coming. And I mean, it's amazing to me how many, I know we'll get into this, but like it's amazing to me how many companies are blinded by a big account that leaves. And then you go back and you look at the data and you look at the maybe lack of a relationship data, just because it wasn't tracked. And you see telltale signs of why an account left. But it seems like, man, this just kind of came out of the blue. And so one of the things that we've tried to do is start to identify some of these flags or these moments where you can predict the future a little bit because these things just happen over and over.
Okay, let's talk about that because I have a tendency to freak people out, and I really try and warn them. Like my prediction on an account by account basis will scare the shit out of you because they're going, oh no, we track delivery. Yeah, we have our marketing goals. We track against that. The reality is nobody that cuts the check or takes the check from them cares at all about what you're doing.
Yeah,
And
it's
by the way, your average tenure, people don't know the average tenure. They always say something ridiculous to me. But if you look at start dates and end dates of client accounts, let's say they're 2 years, they don't even know like we have to create a map for every client of when that 2 year mark is because there's something systemic happening in that organization. I want you to get into some of the specific signals because those are important too. But as a baseline, our clients last 2 years, historically, that's what it's been. Oh, we have this client that we think is going great, but like you didn't recognize that their 2 year mark is coming up.
yep.
Maybe we should dig in a little deeper. What are some of the things that you look for? I want to compare notes on this.
Well, there's some obvious ones, but I think this one doesn't seem. I think it's obvious.
Humor me
Maybe.
because
Yeah.
we'll
So,
laugh about how obvious they are, but other people are going to take notes.
change in leadership at any level.
Yeah, any
And
restructure. The
any
word
restructure. So
restructure.
when I hear, oh, there's this new person coming in, she's running XYZ. First thing I say is, okay, account goes red immediately. What
Yeah.
is the full court press that we're doing to build that relationship? And oftentimes you'll hear, oh no, it's great. They came from somewhere. They say we're great. Yada.
People are expensive. They don't get this. So even if it's not in your, even if it's in a different department in like in marketing, my world, like there's only so much money to go around. And you have to pay that person's salary. You have to pay their benefits, and they're usually coming and bringing in vendors with them if they're a role above janitor. And so the reality is that threatens the budget that you have. Not to mention somebody steamrolling you and bringing in another vendor doing what you do. So yeah,
I mean,
number
what's the
one
number one
biggest.
reason that you bring in somebody? For the most part, it's to change. Now, it might be to change velocity, to change your ability to deliver, but you want some sort of change. And so to think that someone is coming in to do the exact same thing is kind of asinine. So they're gonna look for change. And what are they gonna look at? They're gonna look at all the things that they control. So if they have any impact on budget, on relationship, influence over relationship, they're gonna have all those other vendor relationships, like you said. You just have to expect that.
Yeah.
But they're gonna want something to change. They're gonna want
So
that
I'd
to
say
happen.
I'd say someone new coming in, followed
Yep.
closely by someone leaving.
Exactly. So yeah, that's the precursor, right? To,
Right. It's the
you have
smoke
a
before fire.
relationship.
Like some that
Yeah.
means someone new will be coming in. It also
Yeah.
means somebody had a tough, difficult conversation, and there
Yeah.
needs to be
And
shuffling of resources. So it's the trigger for restructure or shuffling or new roles, budget
And
changes.
this is pretty fascinating to me and it happens when someone leaves. So when you've had the opportunity to work with, we at T3, I mean, you talk about tenure, we had an average client relationship of 9 years, and we measured the hell out of it, and we knew that,
That's
and it
insane.
was it was insane. It was really insane. We had amazing people, but we also had some that were 16 years, and we had some that were 2 years. We had like a very wide range, and we
Yeah.
tried to minimize those 2 years. But what we saw is when those people left, what had happened is we'd forged relationships with them in fire. We saved the day. Somebody was needed something. We went above and beyond. We made it happen. And we knew their kids' names. We knew their dogs' names. We had all these relationships. But if those relationships didn't lead to some sort of tangible outcome that we could message to the CEO, when that person left and the new person came in and we said, hey, remember that like 6 years ago, we saved this guy's job because he missed a deadline and we stayed up all night and we did that. All of that relationship, um,
Yeah.
all of that goes out the door. And so if just great service and just going a little bit above and beyond is what you've built your whole reputation on, and you don't have the results and the metrics to back that up, that conversation, that shift is you're hyper vulnerable at that point.
I started using agency churn physician as sort of a joke because I would change my LinkedIn byline every week. And then I started getting people reaching out being like, that's really funny. And I'm like, okay. So now for some reason now I think about it like disease prevention. And so these are the things where it's like you've been diagnosed. Like this is a terminal illness. And somebody leaving or a new person coming on or the executives not showing up to the QBR, all the signals that churn is imminent, like that's one thing. But then there's all this preventative work, systems that you can put in place, incentives for people, cultural things that you can do so that when those seemingly terminal things happen, you have a chance. And I think I'm speaking at one of
Yeah.
your super secret events for your
For our firm.
for your
Yeah, the go to market summit.
company
You're
wings,
the
your group of people about those preventative measures like eating healthy
Yep.
and exercising. It's the eating healthy and exercising of account management uh, that you hopefully have some of those things in place. And when you don't, you're just waiting to get hit by the storm.
That's just it's a terrible place to be. And I do think that, you've got a list. I've seen it in action. If you don't put those things into place and you don't put yourself in the right space to be healthy and to have those deep relationships, you're going to get crushed. And in a small business, the problem is your biggest clients are the ones that typically have the longest tenure, which means they have the most revenue, which means when they go, you don't just take a little blip, you take an entire step back. And it can be really demoralizing, it can be really challenging on the business. So I think agency turned physician, it makes a ton of sense. You got to take those vitamins. The one that we're
Gotta take
really
your
focused
vitamins.
on right now, the one
Yeah.
that we're really focused on right now is like what is the ratio of educational content to sort of project specific work or opportunities. So, how often are you showing clients something that they don't know or that they don't, that they're not thinking about, that it's just not part of their day to day, but that would deliver them some value so that they take a step back and say, huh, I didn't really think about that. You know what? Like, Max is pretty good to have around because every couple months he brings me something new that I should have known about, but I didn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the relationship can be measured in what kinds of decisions they seek counsel for. And the more you send that educational content and show them that there are things that they don't know, that they didn't even know they don't know. Now when a thought comes up, they're going to reach out to you and go, "Hey, can you help me think about this?"
Exactly.
When you don't have that, you get phone calls that say like, "Hey, we have decided to move in a different direction. We have decided that we're going to bring somebody in to do this role. We have decided all of these things." And that's because it's really interesting that you measure that. I haven't heard that before. But it makes a lot of sense because you're signaling that you only send updates on projects that they made decisions about. You are the implementation arm of their brilliant ideas rather than saying like, hey, maybe you don't know everything, and maybe we're thinking about some cutting edge shit. In fact, maybe we should get together once a quarter and share some of that cutting edge stuff in this cool experience so that you don't get any wild ideas. uh, but
Yeah, orchestrate that. Get that on the calendar for the next 12 months and, give your team a high bar that says, what would we need to put in place for a client to commit 45 minutes 4 times a year and be so excited about that meeting that everyone's going to show up. So we need to have that. It needs to be like it's like a production. You put that on. Think
yeah.
about that versus a QBR. You can do the
So what?
exact same thing, cover the same content, and have a completely different outcome.
So you're the boss. We got 4 year companies coming in. What do you think they need to hear from me? Because you've seen my stuff. You've seen my content. I'm going to come in and talk about. Look, you want to grow clients. It's the only way to reduce churn. Because just as in life, clients are going to die. Every
Yep.
client dies eventually. Even your 16-year clients, they're eventually not going to be a client. So we got to make the most out of when they're around. And I got a whole bag of tricks. What do you think is going to be the most impactful for them, or where do you think their
I
biggest
think
challenge area is?
I think I said, earlier, these folks they're pros. And so they know what they should do. In most cases, right? I mean, there's always new tricks and tips that you can learn. And I think those are always helpful.
Yeah, there's always
I
always the
think
bobbing heads. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
relationships. Yep,
yeah.
that's
But
important.
but I think the service design aspect of making this kind of just an innate part of how we operate, our process, what we do, and showing that great account service isn't an accident. It's also not just like some person that you have to go hire who's been in the, business for 40 years and knows all these secrets or has, is great at golf and can drink whiskey with the best of them. Like the,
It does help
those
though.
are
It
those
it,
are
it
great things. Those are
yeah.
great things. Don't get me wrong, but I think that the idea that this doesn't happen by accident, it's extremely purposeful. Going through that and talking about how that is orchestrated, it is that would be very helpful.
How to institutionalize it,
Yes,
because
yes,
they know because you can. There will be agreement that that's what we need to do. There will be familiarity with it because they've probably seen it before.
yeah,
But how do you make it like, instead of okay, we need to hire someone magical, and I've seen them before, and that'd be
yes,
great. How do we make it like, oh, this is just a day in the life. This is just regular. This is how we do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And because we now have those systems in place and like a pretty standard belief system, everyone understands why we're doing this. And it isn't like there's this one guy or gal over here who's responsible for account growth. This is a company-wide, agency-wide approach. And it's built in. And the last thing, and this is the gap that I often see, I think agencies have lots of challenges, especially right now. But having a real perspective and differentiation is really challenging. Most don't. But even when they do, oftentimes what happens is that differentiation is in the mind of a founder, a managing director, a strategist, somebody who kind of came up with it, and it's actually really good and it wins new business all the time. Very cool to see that. Where it becomes amazing and sustainable is when that turns into the operating methodology and the approach. And so if I come in and I say, Max, you know what? We think that by implementing Shopify, not only can we reduce your costs, but we have a perspective on how commerce should change. And this is one piece of the puzzle, and we can completely revamp the way that you drive revenue and we can 5X it. That's great. You say, okay, I want to buy that. I'm interested in it. And then if we come in and all we do is implement Shopify, you just got sold a bill of goods. That's very different than, winning some pitching something to win and delivering something of value over time. And tying those two things together is super challenging. But you have to do it to be a premier firm. And that's an area where I think service design plays a huge role.
Yeah. I'd look at that as like your high level IP. What is your point of view? And I think the most powerful point of views are ones that are ways of thinking or ways of making decisions. Like I was saying before, that you are measured by when you're brought in to counsel decisions. And so if your methodology is a way of making decisions, well, then you're brought in at the very beginning because
Yeah.
you've got you've got a way of making sure people don't make bad
That's a
decisions.
big
So
point. That's a really big point. How you make decisions, when you make decisions, why you make decisions versus
yeah, if you can go from implementing
implementing.
projects to how do we make decisions, that's going from doing to thinking, that's going from
Yeah,
agency to advisory, that's having a
that's a
seat
great
at the big
topic.
kid table.
Great
Yeah.
topic to talk about.
Well, there you go. That's why we do. Okay, let's get out of here before I say anything offensive.
All
Yeah,
right,
in a couple weeks,
Max.
I'm excited to do that. I'll salvage some content from it. I'll let you get on with your day. Um, cheers for those of you listening to Beers with Max. Don't binge and operate heavy machinery. Tip your waitress. See you next time.
See.